morning, everyone, and welcome to your Week 3 Monday Morning Breakfast Bite. So this week we're talking about intellectual property. So you're being introduced to a different segment of personal property, and that's what we call intellectual property, which we also refer to as an intangible personal property right, which means that it's not something you can touch and feel. It's not like, this keyboard, which has substance and I can touch and I can feel it. Intangible property refers to the stuff that we can't feel, the stock. Even though we have a certificate for it, we can't actually touch and feel the stock itself. So it's not like gold where you can actually touch and feel that as well. But what we're talking about here is an intellectual property right. And an intellectual property right is a personal property right. And it's your right to certain intellectual property that you create. We have different categories of intellectual property. We have trademark, we have copyright, we have patent, and then we have what's called trade secrets. Patents, copyrights, and trademarks are all governed by federal law. Even though they're governed by federal law, each state generally has laws pertaining to intellectual property as well. The one that does not have federal law that governs it per se is trade secrets. That's generally governed by state law, and in fact Florida does have state law regarding trade secrets. Now that doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to commercial espionage and maybe under Commercial Espionage Act at the federal level, but there's no specific law that addresses trademarks per se. So you look first to your state law. You look, and then from there you can go and you can see if there's anything that pertains to it from a federal level. But when we talk about trade secrets, we're talking about those things that give us a competitive edge. But that can be applied to all intellectual property, really. So when we're talking about getting a competitive edge, we're talking about something that gives us an edge up in marketing, right, or sales. And so a lot of times we look at company lists, we look at company processes, the way things are done. Look, for example, at Coca-Cola's secret recipe. That is a trade secret. They don't want that divulged. Bush's Baked Beans makes jokes about it, but arguably their recipe for their beans is a trade secret. KFC's famous recipe, trade secret. So when you think about trade secrets, you think about those things. You think from the technology basis, maybe I've created this new software program that's giving me a marketing edge because it can read X, and I don't want that given out or given away. So I don't want to patent it. I don't want to copyright it. And trademark is completely separate, so we don't have to worry about that issue. So the only things that might affect trade secrets is if you decide you want to copyright your software program, or if you decide that somehow you've developed this new product and you want to patent it. However, if you do go that route, understand that you cannot claim that you have a trade secret in it, because now what you've done is you've opened it up for the public. So with trade secrets, you're keeping that private and away from the public and away from everybody's eyes because you don't want them to have it. So oftentimes, of course, if you were going to have a trade secret, you want your employees to sign a non-disclosure, which means that if they are given access to your company processes, your customer list, things of that nature, they are saying they are not going to divulge that information to anyone. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and let's take a look at your assignment this week, which, if we look at the homework folder, is your team project deliverable 1. And you also have a week 3 discussion. But for your team project deliverable 1, what you're doing with your team is you're creating a fact scenario. And the fact scenario is a fictitious scenario. It's a pretend scenario, but it's obviously based on things that we have learned in our profession, things that we see in the news, and we take all of that and we meld it together and we create this fact scenario. And so what you're doing is this fact scenario has got to be associated in some way with technology management. It has to be associated with the technology world. So whether it's an online situation where you've got an intellectual property violation, or whether you've got a contract regarding software program that one of your employees was developing, whether you have an employment situation that has to do with software that was developed, whatever it might be, whether we have a cybersecurity violation breach or something of that nature. So you want to look and create this fact scenario. You don't want to state in the scenario what the issue is. Please do not state in the scenario what the issue is. If you've done a good job with the facts, I'll be able to tell what the issue is. But another point I want you all to know is that please do not also, oh, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so let's just go on from there, and I'm sure I'll get that back. In your first paragraph, I want you to go ahead and I want you to identify the parties involved. Tell us about the company. Maybe there's more than one company involved. Maybe it's not an employee situation. Maybe it is one company against another company. Who knows? But you have to identify your parties. What are the demographics of the company or companies? Who are the employees? Who is the employee? What is the employee's duties? How long has the employee been working for the company? Things of that nature. What happened? Did the employee enter into an employment contract with the employer? Was it a non-disclosure? Did they sign a non-disclosure? Things of that nature. And then in your second paragraph, you start getting into the facts of the situation. What actually transpired? What happened? So you're going to talk about the facts in your second and third paragraphs. And then in your closing paragraph, you're going to go ahead and you're going to talk about, who is looking at whom from a litigation standpoint, and whether the party that's looking to sue has sought legal counsel. You don't want to say, again, what the issue is, but you're leading us to that direction so that we can figure out what the issue is. Now, from the submissions, I'm going to take 2 of the fact scenarios, and those are the scenarios that are going to move forward. Then what's going to happen is I'm going to assign teams on each side of the scenario. So one team will have the plaintiffs and the other team will have the defendants. And so that's an interesting way to go ahead and address the rest of the situation, because now you're looking at it from a persuasive standpoint. What that also means is that everything's gray. So it's not going to be a black and white situation where you're definitely going to be able to tell. And if it is, then I'll probably add some facts to it. But we'll discuss this after you've gone ahead and you've submitted your fact scenarios. If you have any, do use APA formatting. Please use proper sentence structure and proper paragraph structure. No bullet pointing at all in this assignment. You don't have to provide references because this is something you're making up and creating. It's not going to be based on any one situation that you've read or to which you've been exposed. So just remember those things. And again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to contact me. You guys have a great week 3.